Hello there, and welcome to Dharma Science Radio, your one-stop shop for the most foundational, practical, useful awareness around human design and what it means to understand the body graph that I can possibly deliver for you today. This one's really interesting. I'm talking about somebody who came onto the scene kind of out of nowhere and has had quite a big impact with his work and with what's happening. I'm talking about Sam Altman. So the first thing I'd like to say, Sam, if you happen to see this video and you would like it take it down, let me know. I'll do so. However, I would so much rather have a genuine conversation with you about the mechanics at hand. It is so much more valuable to really understand what is going on in this life than to simply dismiss what we do not like and to move on from it. And so I'm going to be airing some dirty laundry, talking about some nasty thoughts that are going on in your mind. And they're going on in all of our minds, really. I'm talking about the homogenized field of the human mind. How we get caught up in nonsense and lose sight of our truth. And really, I'm talking about how to get back in touch with the truth, which is where it's all at as far as I'm concerned. And so with that business out of the way, let's dive right on in. So here we see the chart of a 1-3 profile. We see a chart that is the same profile as myself. I am a 1-3. I'm coming from the foundations. We're coming from the very bottom, and we're interested in pushing things to the limit. We're interested in finding what can really change, because we have no choice in the matter. Our unconscious is simply pushing things to the boundaries, and we're finding the very limits of what is possible and what is acceptable, or not, by others, and even ourselves. It's really interesting having a first line in the personality. It's the foundation of the entire hexagram process. From the ancient Chinese I Ching, that first line is the foundation itself. And in the true self, the foundation is intelligence, genuine intelligence. In the not self, the foundation is fear itself. It is absolutely absurd how much fear can go on with the first line. And it's even worse for the fourth line or the fourth color transferred over to the first. That's where the fear has no chance of being intelligent because it's meant for something else. And so the very first thing that stuck out to me when I looked at Sam's chart is he's basically a walking penta. Now what I mean by that, this sacral center, this G center, and this throat center, these are the three centers that make up a force called the penta. Now the penta is a non-human entity that has been with us the whole time we've been around as human beings. So if you feel like you're being watched when you're around other people, it's not simply the other people that are watching. There's quite literally a living entity. As soon as there's 3 of us together, 3 to 5 of us together, a penta is born. And the penta is a trans-auric form. And it's interested in survival at the expense of anything else. It's basically the origin of groupthink. You know, when people get together and they lose their intelligence because they're simply a hive mind, it comes out from the penta, fundamentally. It's not us, it's not human. And yet it's technically a term that can be applied to the family. The fact that when we have families, when we're together like that, we lose some of our intelligence at the service of the family, at the service of the penta. And so the penta is quite literally these 3 energy centers, and that's it. What it does is that it pulls specific details from us, and it uses those specific details to encourage survival and respect for the elders. It doesn't care about your unique individual contribution. It simply wants to survive. And when the mind rules your life, the penta's ruling your life. Because it's through the grace of the penta that we've had the chance to arrive at where we are today. Human beings that have dominated this earth, killed so many other species, made it to the top of the food chain, and now we have McDonald's and Jack in the Box. So much has changed since human began. And for Sam, he has these 3 energy centers defined alone. Every other energy center is open. So he brings a valuable contribution to any group he works within. You see, this 214 is actually the most important channel out of all 6 that are between these 3 energy centers. This 214 is responsible for taking the energy from the lower realms, from the sacral, and transmuting that energy up into the very center, the core of being, in the G center. And then from there, the 1-8 is responsible for demonstrating the contribution that the individual or the group is having. And so basically this means that any group environment he is a part of is most likely to succeed compared to other groups. The thing about the penta is that if you're missing anything in here, it's dysfunctional. And especially if you're missing the 214, then it's fundamentally dysfunctional group dynamics on the material plane, not survivable very well. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. However, what we're looking at here is somebody who has the power skills and the direction, the desire to make a contribution, and the ability to communicate that contribution. And it's so fascinating to me as basically the spokesperson and the head for OpenAI, and how, well, artificial intelligence is kind of like a penta. It's kind of like our not-self mind. It's kind of like this force that's not human, and yet there is still some intelligence to it, and it definitely has an impact. I'm sure if you're watching this, you may have interacted with OpenAI in some form, Chat-GPT and all its various iterations. And so it's as if his own influence is part of what it means to be an AI or to have AI, because there's a few keynotes that I found very fascinating. One of which is the personality sun, his exalted selfishness. He does care, and yet he's selfish about it. Then we see the game player of preparation. Somebody who's willing to take risks and they want to prepare for it. And that was very interesting because I remember, I think it was Elon Musk left OpenAI and Chat-GPT because Sam wanted to make it for profit. And with an exaltation in the line of selfishness, it makes sense to me he'd want to be making profit. I mean, it's right here written in the lines that he was born with. To be selfish. He was born with it. And furthering that, this 8th gate in the 3rd line twice, 3 times even. So funny. Honesty in the unconscious. So we'll see. This is his unconscious north node. This is very fascinating. So as life continues, we might see that Sam has some confessions to make as he ages. After he passes around 40 or 50 years of age, maybe by the time he's 60, he might have some confessions to make and coming clean about honesty with his contribution in life. Until then, what we're dealing with is the phony. You see, this is contribution in the line of the phony. This is about being superficial. This is about being on the surface and being willing to be fake as part of one's process. And it's a genetic line that was written into him. It's his personality moon and his personality Mars. So not only is his entire ability to focus into the moment and into his perspective on life, it's through being a phony and being superficial. He's also bringing a mutation of what it means to be phony. What does it mean to exist on the surface and to lack depth? Well, it doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to always be a negative thing. And there's the possibility that his contribution can allow us to recognize the surface of life, the material world, in a new light. That we can see that there is an importance on the surface. Even if we don't go below, there's still value in existing on the surface. And in the light of truth and beauty, I see that his contribution could bring us some of that wisdom. And yet at the same time, I look down here at the personality Pluto, because that 28th gate is in 3 activations. In his personality Earth, it's the line of preparation, preparing to play the game and to take risks. In the unconscious Pluto, it's the line of adventurism. His unconscious is willing to take risks and to try something new that is simply an adventure. Who knows what's going to happen? And then in the personality Pluto, this is the game player who shakes hands with the devil. And I thought that was so fascinating. This is working with negative forces. This is working with the darkness, hopefully for the benefit of the light.
The biggest problem I was having was getting my head wrapped around all of the content and all of the information held within the human design system. Ian really made it simple for me to engage my curiosity for one, but made it approachable enough to where I felt like I could immediately get value out of the conversation and immediately start applying things to my day-to-day life where it didn't seem like some big puzzle I had to solve. It was an immediate solution to something that I was dealing with in my life. How am I going to apply this with any sense of reality? And he made it so simple and so easy that I have now been on another year and a half since that first meeting with him and my first introduction into human design. And it has really given my overall life experience and the quality of my conscious experience a great boost, and overall something I would highly recommend to anyone else that's early on in their years or even months sometimes, like I was at human design.
I've been following Ian for about a year now, and I got the chance to work with him recently. The way that his knowledge of human design expands when you're in his presence to fit what you need exactly is something that is a joy to work with and a joy to see live in person.
Oh my gosh, this session was so unique because Ian really made it feel like I didn't have to worry about expectations. I didn't have to have a certain outcome be a certain way, and really helped me understand that I could just kind of ease my way into this. And he was so conversational about it that it felt like I looked up and the time had gone so quickly that I wasn't expecting it to be as much value as it was for as easy as it felt.
I definitely recommend getting a reading, getting a chance to work with Ian. He's one of the kindest souls I've met and has a really firm grasp on the information in human design. Definitely recommend.
I would recommend working with Ian for anyone that is wanting to have someone that will be both there to nurture your curiosity about human design and the fun things that you can explore about it, but also will challenge you and push you in a direction that will get you up and moving and using it in your real life. I think more than anything else, if you want to not just mentally know this system, if you want to understand how to apply it and use it and see immediate results, Ian is the person I would recommend for that. I think it is important for people to remember that this is an experiment. It is not something that you can try without trying. Like you can't get the flavor of something unless you've chewed it up and swallowed it, right? And this is one of those things where Ian does such a wonderful job of making each thing that you're experiencing understandable and allows you to apply it with repetition. So it's not just a one time thing. You learn how to build really good habits and how to build really good ways to honor your own authority in your own life. And from there, he lets you go and then you can fly. It's pretty remarkable how well he sets up my overall experience within human design for the purpose of changing my life, which it really did.
Who knows what'll actually unfold, what he'll actually do, and what truly will be. And yet in time, his unconscious north node might bring out some honesty that could be shocking or surprising to us. Or it could simply be something we've already known about, and now he's finally being willing to admit it. Who knows? What I can say in this moment is that he's dealing with a lot of amplification in his mind. He's dealing with a lot of stuff that doesn't belong to him. This is most likely the case. When I've seen him, I've seen a video or two, a little bit, not a lot. He does not look like he's absolutely destroyed by guilt. And if the birth time I have is accurate, that would be evidence of not self. That he really feels like he needs to fix everything and he has no hope whatsoever. Whereas when I've seen his videos, he does not look overridden by guilt. He looks like he might have some faith that things can work themselves out. And yet at the same time, what is his mind occupied with? Well, number one, his mind is occupied with receiving validation and proving himself. He needs to know that you think he's valuable, and he's willing to manipulate the truth in whatever way it takes. He knows he has what he has, and he's not willing to take unnecessary risks, unless it's coming from his unconscious and his sense of adventure. Because his personality only is willing to accept that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. That this is what I have, and I'm going to work with what I have. And then spin the truth in whatever way I need to in order to receive the validation and approval from others that allows me to avoid conflicts and problems from this undefined solar plexus. And what kinds of problems is he going to avoid? Well, he's going to avoid problems that have to do with things that don't matter. Because then he can hold on to what's bad for him, being really busy, pretending he's certain and he knows what he's talking about. I mean, it's really such a joke, this homogenized field of amplification. The fact that he needs to prove his worth by avoiding problems, being busy, holding on to what's bad for him, even though it doesn't matter, because then he can pretend to be certain. Then he can know what he's talking about and you'll believe him. But only if he manipulates the truth in such a way that allows him to avoid the problem. Because this 17th gate, this opinions, this is what really runs a lot of the show, I'd have to imagine. Because when you have an undefined ajna with that one hanging gate in there, your logical opinions, your judgmentations, the not-self flies with that like wild. It's like, hey, I've got logical opinions. This is all I have. I'm going to trust this because I'm terrified of life. I need to be busy and my body wants to be busy with these unconscious hanging gates. And I don't think I'm an emotional person. And yet I'm going to avoid those problems by manipulating the truth and pretending to be certain about things that don't matter because I've got logical opinions. You can trust me. I mean, how wild is that? With this 10th gate here, as part of his authority definition structure as a generator, his behavior is built in. His behavior is what it is, and he's likely not judging himself too terribly much about his behaviors. He knows that his body moves. His body has a life of its own, and it's doing its thing. Perhaps that's why he doesn't appear overridden with guilt to myself, is the fact that he has this 10th gate. This is a gate of self-love. And so despite the fact that he's terrified about life and he holds on to what's bad for him because he's super busy avoiding confrontations, manipulating the truth and pretending to be certain about things that don't matter, at least he can love himself along the way. If he has a little bit of trust in his sacral, in his body's response, that changes everything. Because he doesn't have to wait for emotional clarity. You see, if you have an undefined emotional center, you don't need to wait for clarity. Somebody asks you a question and you go, uh-huh. You go, yeah, that's the truth. That's right now. This is the truth. And as a single definition, with that sacral going through the G and into the throat, he can communicate that uh-huh or uh-uh. He doesn't have to think about it. Those opinions only come out as soon as he starts to get afraid. As soon as he gets caught up in being nervous, as soon as somebody else's insight confuses him, as soon as he gets wrapped up in something that doesn't matter, as soon as he feels invalidated or unworthy, oh my God, then it goes absurd. How can I prove myself? How can I avoid this conflict? I need to be more busy. Otherwise, I'm going to die. And that's the danger of listening to the mind. How risky business that is. The dangers of listening to the mind go on and on and on. And so what I wish for you is freedom from that suffering. It is unnecessary. You can live a life of unique individual truth. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what your design is, you are beautiful and perfect exactly as you are. And with that, I wish you a wonderful day. Take care. Bye for now. If you have enjoyed the show and would like to learn more about how all of this applies specifically to you, then kindly refer to the link in this video's description, Private Consultation. Here, we can dive into all of the details together in a recorded call. May your signature vibration of satisfaction, success, peace, and surprise find you in a good way.